Hey YouTube, Mr. Slush here. I just wanted to bring you out to the back part of my property, and I am in the process of making some biochar, but I'm gonna spice it up a little bit this time. I've got some bone here as well, so once I get these 55-gallon drums going, I'm going to start adding some bone in, which I'll show you here in a minute, and I will also be making some Bonechar. So as you can see, I've got two steel 55-gallon drums, which I more or less opened up with a grinder, and on the farther one I just kind of opened up the two ends and just kind of made wings. This other one, I actually had some pieces of steel that I had welded on to that one, but it's really not necessary. I just like the wings on them because sometimes little pieces, if they're a little large, it's nice for them to rest on those wings and then not drop on the ground. So as you can see, I've got some yellow grass nearby. This is the back part of my lot here, where my goats are. I've got my goats locked up in their little pen right now, but I've got my hose handy. So as you can see here, I've got my hose nearby just in case I need it, which I will need it to quench this once it's done. I just got the fire started with some of my trusty lint and some palm fronds, and so the fire's going. I'm just allowing it to burn a little bit. So what you want to see is you want to see the wood inside of the barrel start turning white, and then the fire is going to die down, and then you'll layer on another set, and then you'll allow the fire to burn, and you'll start seeing you don't want it to turn to ash, but you'll see that it's starting to turn into coals at the bottom, and that's what you want to see, is the coals. And the fire will die down a little bit, and then you'll know it's time to lay on your second layer. And so that's what I'm waiting for. This barrel here looks just about ready. As you can see, the coals at the bottom. This one's still got a little bit more. I've got some larger logs in there, and I might just go ahead and get two or three layers of wood, and then I'll start putting the bone on, which I've got a big pile over there. I went and got these from a butcher, and so I've just got a big pile. They've been sitting here for a year or better, but just a big pile of various bones that I've got here. I'll have to dig them out of this dreaded Bermuda grass, but I'll start putting those on after I get a few layers in there, and then I'll have Bonechar. So it'll be kind of a neat thing. I've never made Bonechar, but it's the exact same process, and so I've seen it done on YouTube. Jeff Lawton has done it on his homestead, and so I'll go ahead and do that. And as you can see here, this is kind of rugged back here, but this is all grazing land for my goats. I've got my two swales there, as you can see, the berms, and they go the back one goes the entire length of my lot, and then this one goes almost the entire length with the overflow pond. But anytime I prune trees, as you can see, all these tree limbs here, anytime I prune trees, I just bring them back here, and so I'll use all this for biochar. And so it's kind of hard to see because it's so overgrown in here, but I've got wood all over the place. So, but anyways, I will bring you along for this entire process. I just wanted to show you initially, this one needs wood, so I'm going to let you go here, and I'll bring you back in just a bit. Okay, I'm back with you here. I've done a couple more layers. I did one more layer of wood, and then I did a layer of bone, and then I've just put on some larger logs, some more wood. When I put the bone on, it still has a little bit of oil on the bone itself, so it did smoke a little bit, but once they started burning, the smoke dissipated. And so my next layer, I'm gonna put on some more bone. I'm gonna let this fire burn these logs, and let the flames die down just a bit. I just put these on, so it may just take a moment or two, but what I'm trying to do here, for those of you who have never made biochar, is you successively put layer upon layer. And so I've got this layer, and what it does is each layer, it suffocates the air at the base of the barrel itself, the previous layer, to where it can't turn into ash. So all the air is being pushed upwards, it's being consumed by the flame itself. So all the bottom layers are then just, they're turning into charcoal. It's not allowing the base layers to turn into ash. So every layer, once this burns down just a bit and it's time to add the next layer, then at that point, this layer that I put on will begin just to turn into charcoal. And so now that the flame's going really well, I've got some larger logs. I'm gonna go ahead and start adding more and more bone. So as you can see here, I've got a pretty, it's really hard to see in this grass, but I've got a lot of bone here, and I just wanna make sure that I'm using as much of this bone as possible. So once I see that these layers are once this layer is done burning, I'm gonna go ahead and add a layer of bone. So I'll bring you back in as soon as this layer is done and the flame dies down and it begins to smolder a little bit, and then that's when you know it's time to add your next layer, because if you allow that to go on too long, it's going to start turning into ash. So you just want to make sure that when you first put the wood on, it may smoke a little bit. That's fine. The smoke will go away once the flame consumes it. Once you've got good flame, then at that point you'll allow it to burn until the flame dies down, and then that's when you know it's time to add your next layer. So I'll bring you back here in just a few. Okay, while I had you cut out there, I allowed that last layer to burn down, and you can see that a lot of the wood in here is starting to turn gray. It's not ash, but it is definitely charcoal, and so that's an indication that it's time to add your next layer. You can see that the fire's died down. It's starting to turn gray. This one over here, got my shadow in the way, but this one's got some larger logs still in it, so this one's not quite ready for the next layer. I want this one to go a little bit longer, that way I can make sure those larger logs have burned through. But this guy over here is pretty much ready. So as you can see, while I was cut away, I was digging out a lot of that bone, and I brought it right over here by the barrels. And so I've got a really big pile, and that's not even all of it. I've still got more all over the place in this grass. So what I'm gonna do here is start adding bone to the pit. I don't really know, this is my first time making Bonechar. I don't know if this bone is gonna take to flame. I'm just gonna have to kind of see. Some of these larger bones feel a little moist, and they're kind of oily. And so when I added the first layer, I put some more wood on top of it just to keep the flame going. But now that I've had a number of wood layers, once I've had a number of wood layers here, I'm hoping that it will take to flame. So as you can see, it's starting to smoke a little bit. And so I'm just going to continue to add bone into this pit. Sorry for my camera work here. I'm doing this one-handed. I should have brought my tripod out, but let me see what I've got here. I always have a long steel pole here just to make it safe to operate. That bone really smells kind of terrible. That smoke smells like sort of like a barbecue type flavor, but just a little a little sour. So I've got the bone in this one, and it looks like the bone's taken to flame. That's good. It is smoking, which is pretty common. You can hear the sizzle of the bone. It's probably the oil that's on it. But it is taken to flame, so I'm going to continue to stack some more bone in here, get a nice bone layer going, and I'll see how that begins to take shape, whether or not I have to add more wood. If I don't have to add more wood, I won't, because I've got enough bone here. I would like to try to utilize all this bone I've got. This one here looks like it's gonna need a second layer, the bone layer starting here pretty soon. So I'll go ahead and add some more bone to this, and I'll bring you back as soon as I do. Okay, so I've got the bone added, a nice bone layer in both 55-gallon drums here, and they are smoking. And so it does look like the flame is continuing. I can hear the flames, the crackling. So a little bit more smoke with the bone than with wood, but I'm hoping that once the flame really takes hold, as you can see, I've got quite a bit of smoke coming up here. But I'm thinking once the flame really takes hold of these bone, it's really going to reduce that smoke minimally and really get it going. And this bone I've had sitting out here seasoning for a year. So when I first got it, it was really oily, and I thought, well, I should probably season it like wood and just allow it to sit out in the weather, which it has. We haven't had rain for quite a while now, so it's not wet, but it is still, I could feel larger pieces were moist. It's like they're, I don't know, really oily still, but anyways, it's certainly going, and you can see the flames here with this bone. And I know the first bone layer I got in, I put some more wood on it, and then the smoke totally went away and had a nice flame. So if I have to put more wood on it, I will, but I'm hoping that it'll go ahead and catch flame here and start. It's actually, the smoke is dying down a little bit, so that's good. But I'll bring you back in here in just a few, and I'll let you know whether or not I can add some more bone or if I have to do a layer of wood. So stay tuned. Okay, so as you can see, the flames are pretty strong here. I've got zero smoke now. I did add just a little bit of twigs on top of the bone just to encourage the flames and to get the smoke to die down a little bit. But as you can see there, I don't know if you can see those twigs, not that many, just a few twigs per barrel. And the flames just really took hold once I did that, and now it's burning real strong. I've got almost zero smoke at this point in time. So I'm just gonna go ahead and allow these bones to char up, and I can already see some of the bones starting to turn gray. So that's a really good sign. So I'm really excited to see how this batch turns out. The barrels are, about halfway full at this point in time. I've probably done, I don't know, four layers, maybe 4 or 5 layers, I think. So the barrels are about halfway full, and I've still got quite a bit of bone here on the ground, plus over yonder. So I just definitely want to see if I can use most of this bone. If I can get these barrels all the way full, that would be awesome. Make about 100 gallons of charcoal, bone char, and wood char. And then I'll make a separate video from this, and I'll show you exactly how I activate it. I'll do both solid and liquid means of activation, so you'll see exactly how I go about it. But this, in a nutshell, my friends, is how I make charcoal. And you can go down, you can call up some of the local butchers, and that butcher was extremely happy that I was taking those bones off his hands, because that's just it's an unwanted byproduct. So why not take advantage, right? Bonechar is just full of great minerals and nutrients that your plants otherwise wouldn't get. And it's char, so it's never going to go away. It's going to continue to be there and add to the soil. So I will bring you back here in just a few. I'm going to allow this fire to die down, allow everything to turn nice and gray inside of those bins, and then I'll add another layer of bone. So I'll see you in a few. Okay, it's been about 10 or 15 minutes and I am very happy. It looks like all this bone is turning gray, starting to show some signs of ash. The fire has died down. I have not had to add any additional wood besides those small little twigs initially to get the smoke under control. So at this point in time, I think I'll probably be ready for another layer of bone. This one here looks like it's still flaming just a bit. I may just wait a couple more minutes here, but it's looking really good. And so as you can see here, the bone is really starting to take a gray hue. It's definitely starting to turn into coals, and you can just feel the heat coming from the barrels itself. So with this, every layer that I add is just taking the oxygen away from the lower layers and actually just basically smothering them to where they can no longer breathe and therefore cannot turn to ash. So once I add this next layer, it's just going to take all that oxygen and consume it up, and hopefully this next layer will go without any issue and won't have to add any twigs. I'll see, but just wanted to show you that the bone is indeed turning gray, starting to show some signs of ash, and is definitely looking real good. So I'll bring you back in just a few once I add the next layer of bone. Okay, it's been a few minutes here and I put on another healthy layer of bone. I'm probably between about a half to 3/4 full on the barrel itself. And as soon as I put on the layer of bone, it really started smoking pretty good. So I did go ahead and just put a few more little limbs on top just to encourage the flames to come up. This one I put the limbs on just a little bit sooner. As you can see, the flames are starting to spike up here, and I think once the flames really start taking control, that smoke is going to be gone. So I'm going to go ahead and give this another 15-20 minutes and allow the flames to take over and start turning this bone into char. And then I'll bring you back and I'll show you the graying process once I'm there. So it'll be another 15-20 minutes. All right, welcome back. As you can see, the smoke is dissipated. And one thing I have learned with the biochar from this experience is that after each successive layer of bone, I am having to put the twigs on just to encourage those flames to take hold that much sooner. There's a lot more smoke with the bone itself. So if you ever do bone char, just keep in mind that you will still want to have plenty of twigs on hand. And another thing with the bone that's different from just using wood is that the bone is a lot denser, and so I'm noticing these layers are taking a lot longer to be ready for the next layer. So it's taken me 15-20 minutes between each layer at this point in time, because a lot of this bone is pretty thick and the bone is pretty dense, and so it's just taking a little bit longer to make it. But I actually just took my pole here and I started moving some of these bone around, and I was just poking it, and the bone was breaking apart. So it's certainly turning into charcoal. It's going to be awesome stuff. I'm just totally excited and amped up, And I'm just really glad that I had the opportunity to make this. And so I'm gonna give it a few more minutes. This one's looking pretty much ready for the next bone layer. I've got this little bit here, and then I took my rake and I got another pile there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. I'm about half full, I guess. A little bit, maybe a little bit more than half full, about half full. And so I'm gonna lay on a nice one more thick layer of bone and then a few more twigs, and then from there I think I'm pretty much going to be good. I'll call it good. And so hopefully at that point it'll be about 3/4, and so maybe I can make 80 to 90 gallons or so. We'll see how it all turns out at the end once I quench it. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my next layer of bone, and I'll bring you back here in just a bit. All right, YouTube, well, I've got you back here, and I went ahead and added pretty much all the bone I had left from both areas. There may be a straggler here and there over there, but pretty much added everything as far as the bones were concerned. And I immediately went ahead and just added some twigs as well, just to help the fire get started. So once again, quite a bit of smoke going on here, but I can see the flames starting to creep up, and so I'm hoping that the flames take hold quickly and that the smoke will dissipate, just so I don't anger my neighbors. But the smoke is going south, which that's just all open desert, so no neighbors behind me, which is good. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and wait for this to take flame. It'll probably be another 20 to 30 minutes, and at that point it should be all charred up, and then I'll bring you in for the quenching process, and I'll show you exactly how I go about quenching it, and we'll go from there. So I'll see you here in about 20-30 minutes. Take care. Okay, YouTube, here we are. As you can see, I've got you on my tripod, and the flames are going pretty strong. Still have a little bit of smoke here in the one barrel, but they're both going down quite a bit, and so we'll bring in for the quench here in just a minute. Okay, YouTube, I am back here, and my tripod died, so I ended up having to just hold the camera manually. I should have thought ahead and had it charged. But as you can see, this one here is ready for a quench. I've poked it with my pole, and they're all the top pieces for the most part. I think there may be one in there that's not fully charred, but it's pretty much ready for the quench. This one still has a little bit longer. There were a few bigger pieces on the top, and it's still flaming pretty good. So this one I'm going to allow to burn for a little bit longer. This one I'm going to go ahead and quench. So while I'm quenching this one can continue to burn and get ready. So what we want to do essentially, and why I like the 55-gallon barrels versus, say, digging a trench, is because I can make sure this is fully quenched. So the worst thing that can happen is that you quench these barrels or your trench or whatever it is, and you think you've got the flame completely out, and then come to find out there was still an ember in there. You walk away, and then the whole works just reignites and turns to ash. You come back the next morning to a big pile of ash. So that's the worst thing that can happen. So with these, I think this one may have a hole in it somewhere. I think one of them leaks. I think it's this one, the one with the welded wings. We'll find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start quenching. As you can see, when I quench, it's gonna start making some smoke. Just initially, not too big of a deal, but what I want to do is I want to just fill these barrels up. So I want to see the water level come above the charcoal, and then I know for sure that it's fully submerged and that there's no chance that it's going to reignite. So even with the hole in this one, it will allow the water level to rise. It'll just slowly start to drain out. But what I can do is just make sure that the water level stays where it needs to be long enough to fully submerge any remaining ember, and then I'll know for sure that I've got the whole works out. So this is a pretty crucial part of the whole operation here. Like I said, if you make a mistake here and you don't fully quench out all the ember and everything else in there, it will continue to work. So it'll continue to break down and turn to ash. So it does take a little bit here to get these up to the level that it'll actually submerge the charcoal. I got them, almost 75% each barrel. So I think if I can walk away with, between 60 to 70 gallons worth of biochar, that'll be just fine. And then what I was thinking of doing is I've got those 2 30-gallon trash containers over there at my fertilization station, and so in one I'll submerge it into water, and then I'll add some nutrients to it. Maybe I'll add some jadam to it and some different odds and ends, and we'll have one that'll activate in the water, and then I'll put another one into liquid or into solid. So I'll add some chicken manure to it and food scraps and different odds and ends, and have that one into the water or into the solid, and we'll do it 2 ways. So the activation for the bone will be the same thing as the wood itself. They both turn into char, so I wouldn't anticipate any difference between the two. And so I should be getting pretty close here. Just want to make sure it's fully quenched without any issue here. It does have kind of that smoke, is kind of not a horrid smell, but it's not the greatest smell. It almost smells like burnt hair is what it almost smells like. So the charcoal, the bone itself did have a barbecue smell to it, but it was almost like a rancid barbecue smell, as if you were barbecuing old meat or something. It's just, you could get a whiff of the barbecue. Maybe off in the distance it might smell like barbecue, but ooh boy, up nearby it wasn't too good. So anyways, I will cut out here for a few, and I'll get this one fully submerged. I'll get the other one quenched, and then I'll bring you back in and I'll show you fully submerged charcoal. So I'll bring you back in a little bit. Alright, well, here is the final product. I've got it pretty much fully quenched at this point in time. If you can see the water I've got in here, and it's just pretty much soaking in water. There's absolutely no way this charcoal will be able to reignite. I've got just a little bit more water in this barrel. This is the one with the leak here. And so I've got more water just to be doubly sure. But I want to show you, this bone is just absolutely phenomenal. It just is completely charred all the way through, just easy to break. And it is just a phenomenal product. It's a lot easier to break apart than even wood charcoal is. And so this is just phenomenal stuff. I am thoroughly impressed. Here's like a I don't know if that's a rib bone, but look how easy that just comes right apart, and it just is just crumbling. And so this is it. It's fully charred. There's a little tiny piece there, but it's still charred for the most part all the way through these different things here. As you can see, it's got a little bit of color there, but there were a few that I had removed that were on the top, and I just took them out. I'll show them to you here. It was, I don't know, wasn't too many pieces, just a few here. You can see they still had some color to them. They were the ones on the very top, so I just took them off, and they just didn't have enough time, so I'll put them in the next batch. But as you can see here, excellent product, fully charred. I'll be able to crush this down no problem, and just be able to make good use of it. Look at that. Can you see that? Look at that bone. And it's just fully charred. It's just beautiful. So I've got, I would say, at least 60 gallons here. They're, I don't know, a little bit more than half full at this point. So I'd say about 60 gallons. Oh, there's my lake. Oh, this one's saturated. So it's done. Took me about 4 hours, start to finish, to do it. But I've got quite a bit of charcoal here. And so if I was to lay this directly out, it would soak up any nutrients it comes across. And so there are some gardeners out there that do just throw it in straight without activating it, and then they'll just amend the soil heavily with nutrients the first season. But I don't like to be counterproductive. I've still got quite a bit of biochar out there, so it's no thing for me to set this up to activate and give it all the time it needs. I'll give it all winter, and then I'll have it ready for next spring. So that gives me 5 or 6 months, and so it'll have plenty of time to activate. And then late April next year, I'll use this Bonechar along with some chicken manure and probably some Starbucks coffee, food scraps, compost from my chicken run, compost from my compost bin, and I'll mix all that together in one big concoction, and it'll be a lot, and I'll have enough for every single fruit tree I've got, plus all my garden areas, and I'll just lay it on nice and thick all over the place. So this is Biochar how-to complete guide, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you have a blessed day. God bless you. Take care.